Hi friends, I'm Gio, and I like to write gay fiction. This was supposed to be a long story called Forbidden, but the software I used didn't cooperate. Don't be alarmed. I've split it into 3 parts: Forbidden Need, Forbidden Desire, and Forbidden Dream. They will come out over the next few weeks. The original one-sentence idea was suggested by a person who wishes to remain anonymous. I had fun with it, and I hope I stayed true to the spirit of what they suggested. Thank you for the idea. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started with Forbidden Need. I walked into the office of my mentor teacher, Dr. Andrews, and propped the door open behind me. This room was stuffy and had no air and smelled of stale coffee. Another hot day in Vegas. His was a cluttered office set deep in the old part of the art department building, filled with old half-finished paint projects and discarded art supplies, and had a paint-splattered easel with a half-finished floral still life on it. "Mark, what can I do for you?" he asked. "Dr. Andrews, I need your advice. Do you have a minute?" I asked. "Of course. What can I do to help?" he asked. My leg wouldn't stay still, but kept bouncing. I looked away from Dr. Andrews and finally said, "One of the grad students has fallen in love with one of their students. Could it put their job at risk if they acted on it, and their entire professional career? What do I tell them?" "I assume you don't want to tell me the name, but answer one question first. Is it you?" Dr. Andrews said. "No, sir," I lied. "Is it one of the grad students who will get their master's degree next month?" Dr. Andrews asked. "Yes, sir," I said. "I don't mean to pry, but it does narrow it down to you, Brandon, Misha, Beth, Cal, and Jerry," Dr. Andrews said. "Continue, please." "I don't know how serious it is," I said. Dr. Andrews placed his arms on the desk, pushing his keyboard away. "Is the student currently in the grad students class?" "Yes, sir." Dr. Andrews sighed. "Then we have an awkward problem. This university frowns on relationships between students and professors, especially when they are in the same class. If it stays platonic until after the semester, there is not a problem. If it becomes an affair, the professor, or in this case, the grad student, is quietly let go." "Does anything happen to the student?" I asked. "They get to chalk it up to a fun fling at college and go their merry way," Dr. Andrews said. "But the teacher is fired," I asked. "Fired is a little dramatic. They are quietly released to avoid any embarrassment for them or the university. I know of one case last year. The man was married, had 3 kids, had an affair with a student, and the dean released him from his contract. The ethics committee discovered that the professor cheated for their lover and hiked up her grade. You know, the student got a B when they should have gotten a C. That professor now has a pretty severe black mark in their file. I'd advise your friend to rein in their libido for a few weeks." "I will," I said. "Now the ugly part," Dr. Andrews said. "Grad students don't have their degree and are still trying to earn it. If they are fired, as you put it, they don't get their diploma or their degree, and they have to live with the shame for the rest of their lives." I nodded. "They're disgraced. What do I tell my friend?" "I'm glad you came to me about this, Mark. Let me give you some advice. You can pass on," Dr. Andrews said. "Your friend must act cold, professional, and protect their career." I left Dr. Andrews' office, feeling the same as when I entered, not quite feeling guilty, not quite relieved, and definitely not happy. The grad student in question is me. The student is Phil Connors. I'm Mark Galuska, age 25, and finishing my Master's of Fine Arts degree this spring, specializing in painting. I graduate 1 month from now. My parents immigrated when the Czech Republic was known as Czechoslovakia, but I was born here in the States. My parents worked hard. I worked hard to make sure I made it through school and college and now the graduate program. I'm the first person from both my mom's family and my dad's family to graduate college. They are so proud of me, and I don't want to disappoint them. They know I'm gay and support me, and even invited one of my old boyfriends over for dinner. But I haven't had a boyfriend or a social life since I started the graduate program almost 2 years ago. Between the 2 graduate classes I'm taking, prepping for the 2 undergrad classes I'm teaching, the busy work Dr. Andrew sends my way, my part-time job as a customer service representative at Bixby's Electronics, helping out my dad because he had a car accident last December and is out of work, and helping my 2 younger brothers with high school have brought me to the breaking point. What's the phrase? My plate is so full it's cracking down the middle. All that, and I have my own very small apartment. I am barely keeping it together, and still have a month to go. My goal? I'm not fancy. I want to get my master's degree and help students learn about art. But I'm so tired and worn out. College life isn't at all like it is in the movies. Not if getting a degree is a priority. Though I don't have much money left over after bills, I still try and help my parents. They don't have any money left over. I don't think I have any of me left over. The art department has 6 separate study rooms for the graduate students, the grad studios. Brandon, Misha, and I have shared one since we started the grad program. Each graduate had a desk, a cupboard, and a closet big enough to store their art supplies in. On one wall was a sink and small counter, plus a series of slots and cupboards we could use to store bigger projects, like the 5-foot paintings I was preparing for the graduate art show. Every graduate would have a wall to display their work on, and then get graded. Working on my paintings gave me a chance to think about Phil Connors. He's 23, a senior, a great artist, maybe even better than me, and has friends everywhere. His dark, straight hair hung to his shoulders, and his laughing blue eyes captured my heart. He always wore loose-fitting muscle tanks that showed off his arms and shoulders. I bet he has time to go to a gym, because he has muscular arms, great shoulders, and a chiseled face. The way he smiled made me forget my problems for a minute. He'd been in my morning class, Oil Painting 1, last semester, and now he was in my afternoon class, Oil Painting 2, this semester. So I've gotten to know the quirky way he held a paintbrush in his mouth because his hands are holding his other brushes, or the way he squirts his paints on his palette in the order of the rainbow. I don't know if that means he's gay, or if it's his way of organizing his colors. I've leaned in behind him on a couple of occasions to help him fix an edge or touch up a painted area that didn't blend the way he wanted to. And a couple times our hands touched. That little bit of human contact meant nothing to him, but for me, it woke a lonely part of my soul I had buried behind my family, my school, my apartment, and my work. Can anybody guess who doesn't have a social life? Would it be wrong if Phil and I talked sometime, outside of class, or went for coffee? I wanted to get to know Phil. I wanted to go out with him, to walk with him, laugh with him, just be with him. Would that be a crime? Something inside me crawled with guilt. Phil had so much life. His work had a vibrancy, a fire, a passion I wish I had. In some ways, his work was better than mine. Phil had so much natural talent. Why did he even bother with a beginner class? I liked being near him in class, listening to him talk with the other students. I pulled out one of the 5-foot canvases, set it up on one of the standing easels, and pulled my paints out. With the way this room was set up, my back was to the door. I think better while I'm painting, and all I wanted to think about was Phil. But I never dared act, because I'm his teacher. Soon the smell of linseed oil, of turpentine, and the earthy smell of oil paints, combined with the smell of Brandon's old Chinese takeout, filled the air. My paintings were about safe topics. I had grown good at portraying a gentle sky and calm ocean, but lately I am frustrated with my family, my life, my work, and my paintings. Did it come down to getting my degree or getting to know Phil? Why do I have to choose between them? This painting is boring. You've sucked the soul out of it, just like all your others, a crisp female voice said behind me. It's obvious you don't enjoy painting. It belonged to one of the professors, Dr. Ellie Eaton. The other grad students called her Dr. Beat-em-up Eaton. Dr. Eaton, what are you doing here? I said. She took my shoulders and pulled me away from the painting. In her English accent and with a strange affected wave, she said, This painting puts me in a coma. A rotten avocado has more heart and mystery. You've said something similar before, I said. A machine can do what you do. This lifeless canvas leaves me cold, she said. Thank you for your opinion, I said. Though her comment stung, my parents had taught me to be polite. You will tell Brandon that I was disappointed in his latest lesson plan, and I want to see him, Dr. Eaton said, turned, and left. Dr. Eaton was not one of my favorite teachers. She wouldn't even make the top 10 or top 50. She was Brandon's mentor teacher. I lucked out because I didn't get her. I had nearly 45 minutes painting time and thinking time. Could I invite Phil to coffee without getting kicked out of school? Misha, a graduate student specializing in airbrush, thundered into the graduate studio and slammed her pack on her desk. She jammed her thumb drive into her desktop computer, turned it on, and whirled to face me. Do you know what Beat-em-up Eaton just said to me? I knew she didn't like me, but really? I grunted, because no matter what I said, Misha would tell me anyway. We'd started the graduate program together. We both had Dr. Andrews as a mentor teacher, and we would graduate together in a month. Misha held her hand up in the same affected pose Dr. Eaton always used, and did a bad mimic of the good doctor's voice. It came out as a corny Dracula impression. I appreciate the time you spent on this, but seriously, what are you trying to say by repeating the same pink rabbit 100 times? This painting has all the style and emotional appeal of wrapping paper. It evokes no emotional response. Harsh, I said. As if her work is any better, Misha said. She only likes paintings of naked old men in yoga poses. I can't argue with the truth, I said. Still holding the paintbrush, I waved my hand in the same affected way Dr. Eaton did, and said, To you this might look like a naked old man, but to me it displays how the morals and values of our society are growing old and withering away, and will somehow die. Please note, there is no newness in the picture to suggest that society will eventually renew. We are doomed as a species. Really? Misha said. No, I'm just making that crap up, I said. You should have told her that each pink bunny represented how many people died of cancer this year, or that it's the age of your grandmother who passed away. She'll love it then. Misha snorted, but didn't smile. Do you know whose picture she did love? Brandon's, the pervert. He created a digital work of a half-naked prostitute striking a pose behind a chain-link fence with an airplane taking off in the background. You should have seen the makeup he put on her, and no woman alive could be as endowed as she was. She was almost a cartoon. Then he printed a 36 by 36-inch copy, framed it, and paintballed it with red paint so it looked like it was bleeding. What did Eaton say? I asked. Misha stood a little taller and in a British accent said, "A brilliant statement on how society tempts us, yet puts our desires out of reach, and when we try to claim them, they shoot us down. Take note, class. I want your work to be of this caliber." Misha's quote was my life. Phil was always out of reach. "That was pretty good beat-em-up Eaton," Brandon said, walking in. "Lift your nose a little higher so you're looking down at us never good enough grad students." "Misha would have to stand on a chair," I said. "Make that a desk," Misha said. "I'm short, remember?" "Beat-em-up Eaton might have liked my picture, but Andrews didn't," Brandon said. "Those professors are driving me crazy. He said it was too vulgar to put on an exhibit. Children and families will come and see the work in the graduate show. Learn your target audience and paint accordingly." I didn't paint it for children or their stupid graduate show, but for Graphics Illustrated. That's an online digital mag for those of us living without internet, Mark, and I've already sold it. "I use the internet at the library, and I know what Graphics Illustrated is," I said. "I tried submitting a couple of times when I finally found a scanner that would fit my painting, but the colors turned weird." "Scanners? Please. Do they still exist? That's so Neanderthal. Someday you'll have to step out of the Middle Ages and visit us modern people," Misha sneered. I humphed and turned back to my painting. "Oh, I almost forgot. One of your students wants to talk to you," Brandon said. "He's on the other side of the door." "Invite him in," I said, painting a section of clouds and smoothing the brush strokes away. "Eaton wants to see you as well. Something about how she didn't like your lesson plans." "She hasn't liked any of them, so that's not new," Brandon said. "The horror. You're letting a lowly undergraduate in the graduate studio," Misha said, mouth dropping open, and her arm protecting her face as if she were about to swoon, like some woman in a very old horror movie. "Don't let beat-em-up Eaton see. You know how she is. Am I the only one that thinks Eaton is a know-it-all stuck-up art snob?" Sometimes the best way to answer Misha is to stay quiet, which I did. Brandon opened the door. "Later," he said. My back was to the door. The student walked up and waited for me to turn around. The air smelled of sandalwood. I finished the peaceful cloud and turned around to face who it was, though I already knew his cologne. Phil Connors. My heart rate immediately doubled. About my height, dark hair pulled back into a ponytail instead of hanging loose like he usually wore it. Deep-set blue eyes, tan, because it's Vegas. He wore his usual gray shorts and sandals, but today he wore a white t-shirt with the sleeves ripped off, as well as half the sides. Would he mind if I undid his ponytail and ran my fingers through his long, silky hair? My heart sped even faster. The t-shirt said, "Take pride in Nevada," with the word pride in rainbow letters. He was gay, like me. Why can't I go up and talk to him? Would that be wrong? Would it be wrong to sit down somewhere and enjoy the sunshine together? To get a cup of coffee from the student center together? It would. I'm still his teacher. Andrews was right. Talking to Phil was a time bomb. Still, my eyes roamed. He must be a swimmer to have a body like that. Strong pecs, chiseled arms, and sculpted shoulders. He must have pierced his nipples the way they poked at the shirt. His legs, lightly hairy, tan, and his calves were strong and firm. An ache flashed through me. Asking him out to coffee couldn't be wrong. Would it? Can't I forget about being his teacher? Find a place to hang out? Take him to a movie or a restaurant? Or just watch videos together? I wanted him to sit on the stool so I could paint his portrait. Let the brush gently move the paint around, letting me express my emotions by creating his likeness. Then afterwards, would he mind if I kissed him? That was impossible. What had Dr. Andrew said? Stay professional. Remember your career. Hey, Mark, do you have a minute? Phil said. With a soft, staggered breath, I forced my eyes to look at his face, to meet his eyes, to lock away my desires, my dreams, and be lonely Mark Galuska again. What can I do for you? I said, trying to keep my voice stable, and trying not to stutter, and trying to remember that I was his teacher. God, I wanted to ask him out. Phil stepped beside me so he could see my painting. The scent of sandalwood was delicious and warm. Nice background. What are you going to put in front of it? Hey, undergrad, don't lie to your teacher. If Mark had left his canvas blank, it would be more interesting, Misha said. I sighed and ignored her. Dr. Andrews wants us to make multiple rough drafts before we even start, Phil said, and adjusted his shirt. A tiny smile flickered, then vanished. He looked at me, then quickly glanced away. That's Dr. Andrews' style, but it's not mine, I said. I tried to be cold and professional, but I couldn't. Not with Phil. Not with the man I wanted to get to know. I like being spontaneous, creating as I go, and I like seascapes with calm skies and endless horizons. Snoozeville, Misha muttered. I stepped back to look at my painting, and I agreed with her. My work was boring, unoriginal. What had Dr. Eaton said? Lifeless. I like your painting. It's a dream I would like to visit, Phil said, looking down, and then blurted out something random. Making all the rough drafts and mini drawings of a painting takes all the fun out of it. I like to make one pencil sketch and then base the painting on that and see where it goes. Sometimes it goes in unexpected places, I said, not sure if I was talking about painting or us. There could never be an us. I was Phil's teacher, and anything more than that would be wrong. It could get me fired before I finished my degree. It could get me fired before I started the life I wanted, which meant no degree and no chance to teach at any college level. But I needed something more in my life than the routine teaching and the painting drivel I'd fallen into. No, not something more. Someone. It's like exploring. That's the fun of it, Phil said. Not with the way Mark paints. Boring, Misha said. I said nothing, struggling to be polite. I win. I killed the conversation, Misha said. Phil nodded once. Mark, do you have a minute? Can we talk? Those were the words I wanted to hear, but what would Andrew say? My gut twisted, and half my brain said run, but the other half didn't. Do you want to get lunch? I said, and then held my breath. Did that sound creepy? I might only be 2 years older, but coming from his teacher, it sounded weird and wrong. But I only wanted to get to know somebody. I wanted a life outside of work and school and my degree. I haven't eaten yet today, and our class is in an hour and a half, I said. Misha narrowed her eyes and refused to look at me. Sure, Professor Mark, Phil said. A Philly cheesesteak and some Doritos sounds great, but I don't have any money." Professor Mark, my nickname in class. That stung because I was asking a student out when I knew I shouldn't, but it was too late to back out. I didn't want to back out. "I'll buy, and if we have lunch again, you can buy," I said. My stomach ached with my guilt, but my heart wanted to leap out of my chest. I had a date, though Phil must never know it. Misha stared at me and bit her lip. What was I doing? We walked to the student center cafeteria. A drop of sweat ran down my ribs, and my mouth became dry. Why was I so nervous? Why was I so excited? We sat down with our lunches on one of the outside benches. "What did you want to talk to me about?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Phil took a bite of his Philly cheesesteak and thought a long moment before he spoke. "I don't know if I'm cut out to be an artist. It used to be fun. It was something I loved and dreamed about. But all these classes, all these rules, everything we have to learn take the fun out of it." I took a slow breath and took a bite of my burger. I offered Phil a French fry, which he accepted, and I said, "You're not enjoying college?" "Except for your classes, I don't. The other professors are kind of nice, but I don't understand Dr. Eaton. I mean, I understand the words, but she's mean, and she doesn't make any sense. And Dr. Andrews is all about rules," Phil said, but he stared at his sandwich and not at me. "But you connect with my classes?" I asked. "Maybe it's because we're close to the same age, or you're not preaching the virtues of some deep philosophical bullcrap existential meaning, or blabbering about how color changes with distance and foreshadowing techniques that only work if you live in New York City," Phil said. "I only want to draw and paint, like I used to before I started taking classes. It didn't have to have meaning, and rules didn't matter. It was fun, and I was free." I get fed up with Eaton and Andrews too. Do you know what the other grad students call Dr. Eaton? "Beat 'em up Eaton, because it's a crapshoot if we will survive her critiques," I said. Phil gave me a small, sad grin. "I have the same issues, but at least you're better off than me. Dr. Andrews is my mentor-teacher," I said. "That must be tough," Phil said. "Some days I don't know how I deal with it," I muttered. "You're the only one of my teachers that's treated me like a person. The others aren't even remotely nice. Eaton wants to step on everybody and squash them, and Andrews has to prove how smart he is. I can't take it anymore. I'm thinking of dropping out," Phil said. Slam went the metaphorical 2x4 to my forehead. That wasn't what I expected to hear, especially from a student as talented as Phil. He only had a month left until he graduated. "It's only a few more weeks until the end of the semester. You can make it," I said. Phil didn't look up. That was not what Phil needed to hear. I wanted to hold Phil's hand so he would know that I was there for him. As his teacher, that would be crossing the line. His shirt said he was gay. If I tried to hold his hand, he'd think I was coming on to him. It seemed like Phil was the poster boy for despair. Phil had no idea how I felt about him, that I was gay, and I wanted to tell him how I felt. I wanted to date him. I wanted us to be close. I wanted us to fall in love. But Dr. Andrews had said, "Be professional." A relationship would ruin my career, and I could never be a teacher. I had to accept reality. Out of all the options, love wasn't in the cards. I was his teacher. Phil didn't look up, and his shoulders shuddered a moment. Screw professional. This man needed someone who cared. I slid closer and wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "You're going to be okay." Phil needed a short-term friend to get him through the next few weeks. Then he would go his way, and we'd never see each other again. So be it. Would it be wrong to be a short-term friend? Probably. Phil stared at his food, not eating. Phil, I know what you're going through. There's so many rules to follow at a place like this. So many hoops to jump through, and sometimes I want to give up. I'm a gay artist too, and my teachers don't seem to understand my work, I said. Let me help you get to the end of the semester. Dr. Andrews would not approve. The university would not approve. Screw Dr. Andrews. Screw the university. Screw teacher-student rules of propriety. I had so much going on that I was about to go insane. I needed a friend too. Phil had come to me for help. I had to try and help him. I took his hand in mine and held it firm. Look at me. Phil didn't pull his hand away, but clutched at mine as if he were drowning. I grasped his hand in as firm a grip as he gave me. Phil looked up, wet smudges under his eyes, which he quickly wiped away with the back of his hand. Dear Lord, he was hurting more than I thought. I took a deep breath and squeezed his hand again. You need someone to talk to and help you get through this semester. Let's have lunch together every day, and we can just talk, okay? Phil finally looked at me, a blank expression on his face that evolved into a slight nod. Thanks for joining me, friends. The next part is called Forbidden Desire. Join me next week for it. Peace.